friends, today we're going to talk about David and King Saul. So remember, King Saul is still the king of Israel, even though he has done some things that God had said, your family is not going to be king after you. But God had promised Saul he would be king, and God always keeps his promises. So Saul is going to be king the whole time, right, until he dies. But at this point, remember that God had anointed a new person to be the next king, not from Saul's family. Do you remember who it is? David, right? So we have King Saul. We'll put the crown on him. All right. And we have David. Now, David is waiting to be the next king, but he's still a really good fighter, right? So he, defeated Goliath. And then God has blessed all of his different things that he's done in his life. So he has fought against the Philistines a number of times, and God has made him successful in that and helped him to win over the Philistines. And everybody is so excited about David. Now, they don't all know he's going to be the next king. Not everybody knows that, but they love David. So they sing songs about David, and they say, Saul, he's okay, but David's amazing. Well, how do you think that made King Saul feel, right? He gets a little jealous of David. We'll give him a little angry eyes there. He gets kind of jealous of David, and he says, everybody loves David so much. And sometimes David comes and he'll play his lyre, or his harp, for King Saul, and he'll play that to soothe him. Remember how we talked about music being soothing and calming, and it would make King Saul not as angry as he always was, and it would make him feel better. Well, a couple of times, though, it didn't always make him feel better right away. And when David was in Saul's court and Saul was angry, a couple times he threw a spear at David, where spear is like a long stick that has a pointy end. Kind of like an arrow, but it would be pointy and sharp at the end, so it could kill somebody. Now, remember, God has promised David that he's going to be the next king. So do you think that Saul kills him? No, right? Because God always keeps his promises. And David is going to be the next king, and God is going to protect him. That's one of the promises that God makes to David. So a few times he tries to kill him, but David always escapes. He's always okay. There's one time where David is married to, remember he married the princess, Michal or Michal, some people say her name. So that was Saul's daughter, and he got to marry her. So he's married to the princess, and she really likes him at the beginning. Later on, she doesn't like him quite as much, and we won't get into all that. But she really likes him at the beginning, and she helps him escape a couple times. One time, Saul sends people into their house, and David has to escape, and Michal puts a statue in the bed and puts some goat hair on the top of it and says, "Oh, David's just sick. He's in bed." Well, Saul's soldiers come in to try to kill David, and then they realize it's just a statue, and David's really escaped. So that's part of it. Well, then also, do you remember who Saul's son is? The prince. Remember his name? I'll write it. You see if you can get it. Remember it now? Prince Jonathan. Right, so Prince Jonathan is King Saul's son. Now, he was going to be the one that should have been the next king after Saul, right? He's one of Saul's sons, but he is not angry at David, even though he knows that David will be the next king. God puts a forgiveness in his heart and love in his heart for David, actually, and Jonathan and David become best friends, all right? They're BFFs, we'll call them. Okay, they become best friends, and they do a lot of things together. They watch out for each other, and there was a time when King Saul was trying to kill David, and he had this big banquet, and he was going to have this big banquet, and he was going to kill David during that time. Well, David found out about it, and he says to Prince Jonathan, "Hey, I think your dad's going to kill me at this banquet. I cannot go. I'm going to go home. I'm going to tell him I'm going home to Bethlehem to see my family. If he gets really mad and is upset because he wants to kill me, then we'll know that he really does want to kill me. Otherwise, if he says, oh, that's fine, no big deal, then we know he's not really mad at me, right? So they come up with this plan, but then they say, well, how are we going to tell each other this? So they come up with a plan about arrows. So Prince Jonathan says to David, I'll tell you what, there's this field, you know, that field you hid in before when you had to escape when they came to your house. Go to that field, that same field, and I'll tell my dad that you're not at the banquet, right? And if he gets angry, we'll know he really wants to kill you and all of that stuff we said before. So he says, if it's not safe, I'm going to shoot my arrows. I'll do like some target practice, right? And I'll shoot my arrows. And then I'll say to the servant boy who usually collects my arrows, I'll say, if they're close, that means it's fine to stay close. My dad's fine. You're going to be fine. But if I say they're far away, go farther to my servant boy, that the arrows are far away, you know that you have got to go far away because my dad is going to kill you. So they have the banquet, and David does not go. And the first night, now the banquets last a few days. So the first night, King Saul doesn't really get mad, and he's just says, oh, David's not here. He must be sick or late or something. Well, the second night David's not there, he says to Prince Jonathan, where is David? And Prince Jonathan says, well, he asked if he could go home and into Bethlehem and see his family, and I told him that was fine. And he says, King Saul got super angry, and he yelled at Jonathan, why are you friends with him? Why do you keep helping him out? And he actually threw his spear at Jonathan, and he didn't hit Jonathan. He was okay, but he was so angry. And Jonathan knew, my dad really does want to kill David. So the next morning he goes out, and he goes target practicing with his arrows in the field. And he has a servant boy, and he shoots his arrows, and what do you think he says? Do you think he says, oh, they're close, or they're far away? What do you think? Far away, right? They're far away. Like, you have got to get out of here because my dad wants to kill you. So David has to be on the run. Well, so David, later on, they meet before David runs away. Jonathan and David meet, and they make a promise to each other. And they said, we are always going to be best friends. And I will watch out for you, David, as much as I can. But and Jonathan, he says to Jonathan, I'll watch out for you too. And they make a promise that if anything happens to either one of them, they will both be kind to each other's families, and they'll take care of each other's families. So that's a good promise that they make. And they cry, and they hug, and they say goodbye, because it's always hard to have your best friend have to leave, right? So they are sad, but they make them a little bit sad. But they know that it's for the best. And David ends up having to leave, and he has to end up running away from Saul. And we'll talk more about that at our next Bible lesson. All right, friends, I forgot to add one thing to the Bible lesson, and that is in your Bibles, I want you to read some of this story. It's called Best Friends. It's on page 181. It looks like that. If you want to read the David and Goliath one, because we hadn't read that one, you can, but definitely read the Best Friends page, okay?